doesn't speak English, but the girl that sits with her is really good at kind of helping her and guiding her. So with this, I had to do a lot of just demonstrating for her. Kind of coming over to her. Un poquito. I speak a tiny bit, enough to kind of move it along. And evidently she's, I don't know how bright she is, but because I don't hear her speak hardly, but she seems like she's really catching on quickly. So I don't know that I had any special technique, but it does. Seat partners do help a lot, and they respond a lot of times better to a peer than they will to you. So that becomes a really good source. Now here's another one that we did, Roy Lichtenstein, and this was more just strictly art. This didn't have anything to do with it. I think on your papers it talked about different genres of art and stuff, and so we were studying different artists and their styles. And we read Roy Lichtenstein, and these books are wonderful books. There's a whole series of about 100 of these that covers all the main artists. And what I like about these books, they're called Getting to Know the World's Greatest Artists, is that they always start by showing the artist. They will show artist's work, but they also have, this is the part that kids like, they have these funny little cartoons that are in it that sort of tell about the life of the artist and funny things, about them. So I will read these stories with them, and then we will develop a project. Roy Lichtenstein used primary colors. This was my very first project for first grade this year. And they had to use primary colors. That was what the whole project was about. But I tied in fractions when we did this. And we talked about fractions. I can only do a little bit. I can't do like in the classroom, but I can ask them how many blue ones are there. We created a fraction for it, and we looked at this one where it was halved, and those kinds of things. If we had the whole one, how many of them would there be? So we started, I quickly all write those fractions up on the board. I went through a period in Polk where we did whole language. And whole language was really involved with this kind of thing, where you would take a piece of literature and your whole unit would be around a piece of literature, and you would develop projects like this. We don't do it as much as we used to, but I really like that a lot. Let me see what else. I've got a lot of other things, but probably time-wise I don't have time to show you, but even cross-curriculum with music. With the music teacher, I had her allow us to use rhythmic instruments. And so we took my scrap boxes I recycle, and they had to create patterns using these scraps. And the first row had to have just 2 items. And they could repeat them out, but it had to be a pattern. So they have 3 of the circles, 2, 3, and each row was different. And then we used a musical instrument. So when this item was, when we would touch this, then we would strike a certain instrument, and we would touch the squares of different instruments. They sort of created a piece of music with their artwork. And it was kind of a neat tie-over.
And was that kindergarten?
That was first grade.
First grade.
Yeah, and me and our music teacher helped me out with that. And that was kind of neat. This was a fairy tale that we did here, where we broke it up. Underneath here are straws. So they broke it up with straws. And this one, I think, was The Princess and the Frog. And then they had to use magazines and cutouts. This is why you got to collect lots of stuff. I have lots of magazines. I have one box that's just photographs that people would normally throw away. And I just say, send them in to me. Picture old, trips here and there and stuff. And so I got stacks of photographs. And that's what that little picture is there. And then they cut these out into the different sections that were different characters from the story, or you could do settings from the story in one box. But this is a bit complicated. This was older kids. But you could, simplify it, because then I take everything further. Then we covered the whole thing with tissue and glued that down on top of that, and then we ran a white paint over it to make it more artistic. So what my thing was with it. But that was kind of fun with fairy tales and using art to incorporate your elements, from stories. I have lots of things that go on forever showing you stuff. Here was we read a story about a turtle, and then they did a collage, a turtle collage, and in the collage they had to show how the turtle laid eggs and had babies. So we used little beads, and they laid eggs. This was 4th grade, because you can see the cutting of this stuff's harder to cut, the cloth. But they did really good with it. I had a lot of fun with that, too. Okay, also, culturally, our school picked up on this, but I got all these where our school has done this. We are having a relationship with a school in Japan. It's a Twin City kind of thing, and we sent them artwork, and they sent us artwork. And you can do those kinds of things. So this is from a 10-year-old child in Japan that was sent to us after we had sent them artwork. So you can do those kinds of connections, and it could be within the United States as well. I remember when I was in school, one of the things I thought was really cool is we had pen pals. It was back in the pen pals days. And we had pen pals in Texas. And after we did the pen pal thing, I got so excited about writing letters, and I started writing to all the state governments, and they would send me a map, and they'd send you all these little things that you could get, in the mail. So that's kind of neat for cross-cultural stuff, to try to develop something with another school somewhere else where you can do that kind of thing. Also, when we did that, at Cleveland Court, we used to have a day, what was that? It was not field day.
Earth Day.
Earth Day. And my part of it was we took countries. I'm not thinking of Earth Day, I'm thinking of the countries.
Yes, World Day.
World Day. And each grade level was a country, and so I would do something tied in. We had the Japan in second grade did these dragons with using the egg cartons, and we just stuck rods through them, and they had a blast doing it. It was all very simple for them, except for these wings were a little bit harder.
That was a lot of fun. Each grade level was a different country, and the kids got to travel around throughout the day. Like 5th grade was Africa.
Yeah.
And we tried to keep them pretty much the same, and that way the children got to do a different country every year as they progressed up in the grades. And the classes themselves that prepared it learned a lot in depth.
Right. Yeah.
And then the children taught or presented to the different classes that came through that day.
Yeah. And they had one year they had little passports. It was real cute. And when you went to each room, they stamped your passport that you had been to that country. So the kids thought that was really cool. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm assuming you guys are going to teach it, because you get to be so creative, and it's just fun. I mean, it really is fun to do those kinds of things. So that was neat. We had forks and spoons, which, were from the cafeteria.
But you will have to generate your own fun sometimes, because the politics of education, and I'm not trying to get too political here, but they are getting very, very strong. You don't know this as much now, but as soon as you enter your first year of teaching, it is going to smack you in the face, the politics. And they're and a lot of times they just tell you exactly what to do, when to do it. You feel like you just have no control over things. You have got to stop and take a look at, what do my students need? What can I do to make learning fun and exciting for them? And it's these kinds of things that you will need to do. And you might be the one and only person in your grade level that does it. But remember what we're telling you. Get both sides of that brain working. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does. The learning will stick for them. This is one we're doing right now in the STEM group in 4th grade, because they do the construction stuff, but I want to show you some math tie-ins. You know what shape that is? It's not really a shape or form. You know what it is? My 4th graders know. It's a prism, yeah. And they can even tell you that it is a triangular prism with a right angle versus an isosceles prism. So that's pretty cool. Well, they've had to build these, and they had to build them as close to perfection as they could. This